Hello and welcome to another episode of the Course in Miracles inspired podcast, May the Course be with you, where I, Leon Joel Russell, get to speak to the people that I love about the system that we love. Neda, hoe gaat het?
Goed, met jou?
Ja, ik ook goed, dankjewel.
Impressive, very impressive.
That's it, we're done. English.
Good. Good.
Luckily for me, you can speak fluent Engels.
I can, yes. Good.
Firstly, thank you very much indeed for making some time and sharing some of your time to have this conversation. I feel that's really lovely. I appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, really nice. Really looking forward to speaking about how music and A Course in Miracles converges for you. And in the build up to knowing that we were going to speak today, one of the first things that came to mind for me was about this like convergence of spiritual beliefs and values and music.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like thinking about asking you the question, can you remember when the two became one as such? And was there a period of time prior to that where they were their own independent aspects of what's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
It made me remember my experience as a teenager, and it was the rock band U2 before they became a global force. It was like they hadn't released one of the album that made them massive, and I remember this bubble being burst of like watching an interview with the vocalist, and he talking to the person, and he said, you know, this song is about these mothers in El Salvador, and when they wake up in the morning they find that their children have been kidnapped. And the song's called Mothers of the Disappeared. And you know, it's making me tingle now, like 30 odd years later. And I remember thinking, what? So, you know, songs aren't just like la 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 la, hey baby, what you doing, and all this kind. It's like something as deep as that is what you can sing about. And it awoke my conscience. And you know, it probably took me the best part of a decade for that to then be something that worked for me. But I can remember that moment of like the pinprick in the bubble bursting, and I just wondered, on the basis of how that memory came to me and off the back of the question I anticipated asking you, whether that brought up a similar experience, or you could share how those two things became one for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, beautiful question. I think for me, I was like, as a little kid, I always loved singing. So I started like so young. And I think my shift was really from trying to change the world to trying to change my mind about the world. You know what A Course in Miracles says. So that is very much connected to the music that I made as well and make. I think I was like 8 years old or something when I wrote my first song, and it was about how everyone should stop smoking, you know? So it was like, because like everyone around me was smoking, and I used to hate the smell of the cigarettes and wanted everyone to be healthy. So I made this song everybody should stop smoking. Um, and as a teenager, young adult, there was still very much this, yeah, using my voice to want to change the world. So I remember also when I was 17, I went to Africa for the first time. We went to Kenya, and I had written a song about HIV and AIDS. It was called 7 Seconds, and it was in the song. I also counted to seven, and at that time, I don't know how it is now, but um, every 7 seconds, someone in the world got infected by HIV.
Mm,
So the song was kind of about that, and with that, I won this contest that made me be able to travel together with 10 other teenagers to Kenya, where together with 10 Kenyan teenagers, we created this really great show with dance and theater, music, and we toured all around Kenya through the slums, the orphanages, festivals, even the Maasai village. We performed there. It was an amazing experience, and it was about breaking the taboos around HIV. And after every show, we would have a conversation with the audience about sex and yeah, to just
mm,
be very open about everything. And I think this was definitely the first time where I really experienced the power of using music as a tool for communication
mm,
and connection, and seeing how music is such a universal language. But it was still very much this like activism type of, in me of like, yeah, the year after I wrote a song about women's rights, and I went to India to invest child prostitution. Actually, it's pretty intense. Also with another organization from Holland, and I sang this song, and so it was very much, yeah, already using music as a tool, a very powerful tool, but it still very much came from this feeling of here I am, there's the world, and I need to do something to change the world and to make the world a better place and this type of thing. I think when A Course in Miracles came on my path, I was 20, and this whole idea of like what the world is actually in me, like it's not me over here and the world over there. It's it's actually all a projection of my mind. Like I think that at first kind of what a lot of people probably can recognize, it brought this existential crisis, right? Of like, what? Like, what does anything mean then anymore? And like, what what am I even doing here? And like, what is the use of anything?
mm,
That was, of course, a phase. But I think from there, it started to translate to my music, to become less focused on out there, and people need to wake up and they need to do this and they need to I want to wake up.
mm,
I want to remember who I am.
mm,
I want to remember that I'm dreaming.
mm,
And that in combination, I feel, with the voice liberation work that also came on my path,
mm.
basically around the same time that A Course in Miracles came into my life.
Right.
A Course in Miracles, of course, is really guiding us to look inward and to seek and find all the barriers we've placed against the love that we truly are. And that's exactly what voice liberation, or what music, the power of music, actually, when used for that purpose, our own voice and music becomes such a powerful tool to bypass the intellectual mind, bypass the ego, and really go straight into the heart and
Mm,
feel, because we
mm,
can talk about things, we can talk about it. You see that in Course in Miracles communities as well. People can talk so much, but it doesn't really hit the heart.
mm.
And then one song is played and everybody is crying, and they're, and they're feeling it. So, um, yeah, so I think my transition sort of with music was just very very connected to my own inner transition
Mm,
of really realizing that I'm the one that needs to wake up, you
mm,
know, to take responsibility for sight
mm,
and to become way more honest with my inner world, which
mm,
then also reflected into my music, to become way more vulnerable, way more honest, to share about actually what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, um, and to really start using music not as a way to try to change the world, but really as a way to, yeah, change the way I look at the world, change my own inner world,
mm,
basically, and to really, yeah, use it to release the inner blocks
mm,
that are still keeping me from fully allowing in the love that I truly am. So it's a big shift, but now, yeah, I think music is still, it's one of the most powerful tools for healing when used as such. So I love that, I've always loved music, that now it's also not like, oh no, now you're Course in Miracles teacher, now you're on this path, now you need to give that up. It was like, no, we can still use that, but now we're gonna use it for a different purpose.
mm,
And I actually think that's with everything. There's nothing in this world where it's like, oh, this is from the ego, this is from the spirit. No, this whole world, it's all neutral, but it's all the purpose. What are you using it for, you
mm.
know? And when used for the purpose of awakening, everything can become so powerful, you know? Yeah, and so for me, that is music.
That is a beautiful, beautiful answer. And yeah, I suppose there's a couple of things reflecting back at me from that is like it's a yardstick. So it's almost like a reflection for you to say the purpose of music during your undoing process, if we can call it that, reflects back at you where you are on the journey. So, and also, it's really important when you said about the existential crisis and like how that can be like a nihilistic thing at first,
Yeah.
because in terms of like an ego appropriation, it's not even an ego appropriation, it's just the fact that we've been identifying as a localized point of consciousness from since we were born until whenever that moment happens. So obviously that's the way we see everything. And
Mhm.
then we have we the ego the activity of mind that we call the ego interprets this experience of like, whoa, and that has to fall away before the spirit can interpret what's happening, what's being experienced, because we haven't identified as spirit primarily for
Mhm.
all of that time. We've been learning about this construct of all these different concepts that have been created around our mind to say what our identity is, like Leon, male, English, and they're just the basic ones. And but you could make a list of like probably about 100 things, and then we have to let all of that fall away to find that universal shared identity. And then obviously the purpose that we then feel through understanding is like, now I want to demonstrate that. I mean, it might not even be that conscious because it's not like, right now I want to demonstrate. It's just like, well, this is who I am and this is
Yeah,
who I
just
am
a
now.
reflection, a
It's just a
reflection.
reflection. So then music is going to be a reflection of that, because,
Definitely.
or whether somebody cuts hair or whether they
Yeah.
mow people's lawns or
Yeah,
whatever
it
they're.
becomes a beautiful opportunity for healing. Yeah, it's not, nothing is less than, also when it's used for that purpose of awakening, purpose of spirit. There's no jobs where you can say like, oh yeah, then you're so stuck in the matrix or something.
Yeah.
'Cause no, you can use anything. You don't have to be this spiritual teacher like on stage. You can be a spiritual teacher while um, having an office job, you know, like just being fully present with your colleagues or with whatever it is you're doing. It is being a spiritual teacher, you know. A spiritual teacher is not per se that you have a best-selling book and you're on stage and you're talking, you know. We're constantly teaching in every moment. So I think, yeah, in the pre-conversation we had, you asked me like who else inspires me, and I mentioned Byron Katie.
Mm.
I think she's such a beautiful, um, yeah, beautiful teacher of that as well. I think one of her quotes was like, befriend the, what was it that she said? Like the mundane or the just the wiping your kid's nose, you know, that
Okay.
enlightenment can
Mm.
be in that moment, you know, that it doesn't
Mm.
have to be in, oh, I have to go to this retreat, I have to be in meditation on top of a hill for like everything can become your practice, you know. There's no, I mean, I give retreats and they're so, I see them kind of like as a boot camp, you know, where we
Yeah.
really we go so deep in a short amount of time. We really access places in our minds that um yeah, that by yourself it's hard to reach, you know. It's really
Mm.
helpful to do that with
Mm.
supports and with
Mm.
help and with, you know, a devoted space and time for that.
Mm.
But I don't see it like, oh yeah, now I'm gonna go to the retreat and then that's it. And outside of the retreat, then, you know, like it's the retreat continues. It's every moment, every interaction that you have. Doing groceries can become a spiritual practice, and not that you have to go like in the grocery. Namaste, everyone. You know, it's like, you know, you don't have to all of a sudden like start wearing all these like robes and, you know, like crowns or whatever.
I wish
But
you'd told me that before I bought all my robes and crowns.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But it's like make everything your spiritual practice, you know, make everyone your spiritual teacher. There's, yeah, then it's
Mm.
also not like, oh yeah, these people, they're so not aware, or, you know, these
Mm.
politicians or these, it's like almost at the end of the year, right? What is Course in Miracles says, like, make this year different by making it all the same,
Mm.
right? Can you see everyone as your teacher? Can you use it
Mm.
all? Can you be curious about whenever you get triggered to be like, huh, that's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Like, let me pause. Let me pause for a moment instead of like, they're so not aware. Like, I wish I could go back to my yoga class. Like, at least there, everyone is like, you know, it's like, no, they are you. You know, they are you. They're all you. You're all of them. You know. I don't know how we got there, but it's just, I think it's, yeah, it's something that came up for me. Like, yeah, we can really use everything as our teaching, as our teacher. And I think it's so important to not make exceptions um,
Mm.
with what we practice with, you know, to really use all
Mm.
of it
Absolutely.
without
Yeah.
exception.
Because
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is like I love that the way that the course like levels the whole playing field by saying to be a teacher of God, you just got to have had that one single moment where you saw your interest as the same as someone else's.
Mm.
It's like you didn't go and study, you know, you can't memorize 31 chapters from the course. And if I say, what's lesson 211, Neda, go, you know, you're like, oh
Yeah.
no. It's like you just had that moment in your existence where you recognize that you have shared interests. And I really love that about the course.
Mm.
There's a lot of things about the course that work for me in terms of like, you know, where it'll say this is just one road to the top of the mountain, or, you know, the classic line, forget this world, forget this course. You don't find that kind of comfortable security in the foundations of what's being offered in a lot of systems.
Mm.
that aren't representative of thousands of years of study. You know, if you think of like the Buddhist systems and the Advaita Vedanta and the Tao Te Ching and the things like that, that are literally the current end product of thousands of lifetimes where someone's devoted themselves to contemplation and introspection, and
Yeah.
then handed that baton over to their next generation. And then, like 2,500 years ago, you have these systems which are really rich. Everything's covered, and it's the opposite of like what you hear a lot of times, where someone will say, in a modern church, for example, Reverend, Pastor, whatever, you know, I was just wondering, blah, blah, blah. And they go, we don't ask that here, son. You know, we
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
You're like, what? But
No
I've got this.
questions.
But this doesn't know, you know. Whereas with a course, it's like, yeah, there you go. It's almost like, yeah, look around, you know. It's like, you know, there's if you find something elsewhere, brilliant. You know, we're not worried. We're not like,
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't call it a comfortable path. I don't know if that's right. I wouldn't like I think it's comfortable if you don't really do it, you know? Like then it's kind of like, oh yeah, let me snoop around a little. Oh yeah, nice. Oh, I know a little bit. Or I think there's many people also that say, oh yeah, I've done the course once, or I think if you really get in it, it can be very uncomfortable because it teaches you to go to places where the ego loudly screams for you not to go. So, that little bit of willingness that he's inviting us towards in the beginning.
mhm,
I think a little bit later it talks more about a lot of like big willingness, and there's a lot of courage. I see that in my retreats as well. It really takes so much courage. Like I'm always in awe of like how the people that come to my retreats, that they have so much courage. I can really see it. Like they're not afraid of the dark,
mhm,
and but it's usually because the people that get there and that have so much courage is because they already went through so much stuff
mhm,
that didn't work, and their feet are so tired, that they get to this place of like really unbended knees and be like, okay, like surrender,
mhm,
like, you
mhm,
got me. And I don't think it's necessary to have all of that pain, because even A Course in Miracles teaches us pain is not necessary for learning. It's not necessary.
mhm,
But I think most of us, definitely me included, have so much resistance towards actually allowing in the love of God,
mhm,
that we need the pain in order to get to a place where, okay, no, I can't take this anymore. There has to be another way.
mhm,
But of course, it's ultimately not necessary to go through all of that. But for most people, it is,
mhm,
because of the resistance.
mhm,
But yeah, once we do find that courage to look inward, it's one of my favorite parts from the Course in Miracles, the fear to look within, where it talks about that the ego screams so loud, like don't go there, don't go there, and then it says like it's kind of suspicious, that the ego screams this so loudly and so often. It's like, if it, like, what is really going on? Like, why are you really defending this so much? And then it talks about, well, the real fear of the ego is actually that we would look inward, we would go within, and we wouldn't see any sin or darkness. Like that, all we would find really is just love, and that's the end of the ego. um, so it's very, yeah, it's very normal that the ego feels a lot of resistance towards actually doing this course. And it's a fear of death that is quite real, like it's
mhm,
quite understandable, because that
yeah,
is that is also kind of what it is, so. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of something, excuse me, that I was listening to Muji say recently, and he was in his lovely comical and light but deep way, sort of describing to his audience about a raindrop falling towards the ocean, and the raindrop's going, "Wow, oh, look, there's the ocean." I'm going to land in that ocean in a minute, and I'll be able to like swim around as a little raindrop and still be me, kind of thing. And it's like the moment he hits that water, it's the ocean.
Just evaporates. Yeah.
But that again, that kind of makes me think about earlier asking you about the convergence of your spiritual interest and your musical interests, and how initially we look at the self for the awakening of like from an ego point of view of like, oh my god, and it's the same thing. It's like we would look at that experience of like the fear to look within from the ego perspective. Why wouldn't we? But I think sometimes with the course, that I don't know if you call it a danger, because there isn't really a danger in the world, but just for the use of language and conversation, because it's such a heavy lift, because it's so dense, and it can come across as like intellectual and like, oh well, of course, I studied Course in Miracles. It's like, what are
Yeah.
you? Oh right, okay, straight away the ego says, oh brilliant, well yeah, we're
Yeah. Let's
spiritual,
do
let's tell
this.
everybody.
Of course. We'll
And
join
I
right
know
in.
that's me. And the guys on here will have heard me say it before, but I'll say it again. There's a lovely Ramana Maharshi story that just again brings the level playing field to the table. And he basically uses the analogy of like a doctor's surgery, and he says, if you go into the waiting room of the doctor, the greatest doctor in the world, and you go and sit in his waiting room, he's like, who are you going to find in there? Are you going to find someone with like a cold, or they've maybe got a sore finger or something like that, or their back hurts a little bit? He's like, no, you're going to find the people in there who've got the biggest problems that need to see the best doctor in the world.
That's funny.
And that always helps me with a course. It's like, I needed a course in miracles to puncture
Yeah.
my fog and confusion and
Yeah.
forgetting and misidentification,
Yeah.
and it needed to be 31 chapters thick and blah blah blah, and to
Yeah,
get
because
through.
it's all summed up in that introduction, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. That's it. Like, if you truly accept that, you don't need the course, you know, at all. Like, that's it. That's it. And basically, like, most of the lessons, it's just that in different words.
Mhm.
It's like the same theme, but like many different songs,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, I know. I sometimes say to people, it's like you're in a museum and there's a beautiful statue. It's the same statue, and the workbook's essentially like
With songs.
365 places around that statue that you can look at it from,
Exactly. Yeah.
because you need 365 ways pointed out to you,
Yeah.
because this matrix of identity and activity is so enmeshed. To pick it apart is a massive job. Whether you start that at, like you did at 20, or for me, the course came into my life when I was 20 as well. And I never use that as like again a marker of like, well, I've had the course for all this. It's like, well, I've needed
I've
that.
needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so good to really have that humbleness, because I think the spiritual ego can be so big, and I love it. I love what you said about the doctor thing. It really reminded me of this one day where I was at this Course in Miracles event, and there was another young guy there. I think he was like 25 or something.
Mhm.
And most of the people there were like over 60 years old. And often like the people that age, like they'll tell me or other people like kind of younger, like, oh, you're such an old soul, you know, that you already found a Course in Miracles. I get that so often, you know, you're so wise for your age, and I wish I had that at your age. And this guy said like, well, yeah, for me it's more like, okay, imagine how many lives have I already been through for me to find this course now at this age, being like ready for it. For
Mm.
me, it's more like when somebody now says like, you're such an old soul. It's like, what took me so long? You know, he said like it's more like how you say it, like, wow, that's impressive if you're a young soul and you found a Course in Miracles, you know.
Got
So
you.
I think it's funny. Like, yeah, I think humor is one of the most spiritual qualities I
Mm.
think we can have. It's so important, and to, yeah, just really not take yourself too serious. And I think even A Course in Miracles, you know, it says like a tiny mad idea crept into eternity, you know, because why? Because the Son of God forgot to laugh
Hmm.
about it, you
Yeah.
know, and basically saying this whole illusion of time and space came to be, not really, of course, but within the illusion, because we forgot to laugh about the idea that we could be separated from who we are, you know?
Mm.
So I think laughing, it's so important.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's one of my favorite things also
I'm glad to hear that.
being on this earth, you know,
I
to
think I
laugh.
spend all day, every day, trying to be a fool, if you like, but
Oh,
the
for sure.
intelligence of being a
Me
fool.
too. And it's the fastest thing that can also break the ego, you know? It's so funny. Even last night, me and my partner were talking. We were at the beach a couple of months ago, and I saw this piece of stone that looks exactly like, almost like a shark tooth, you know?
Hmm.
And so I put it in, you know, I put it, and it looks insane. When I have it in, it's just so funny. It's so crazy, you know?
Brilliant.
And he just cracked up, and I kept the tooth, so I have it in my purse
Okay.
now. And so whenever like his ego gets triggered or there's something that I pop in the tooth, you know?
Good.
And like he just like he can the ego cannot survive, you know?
Mm.
It instantly breaks. So I think it's, you know, not to say that we should laugh away our pain, and
No.
you know, it's so important to
You didn't put
definitely.
it in when you went to the funeral the other night.
Ah, wow. Yeah, that would be a little too much. Maybe afterwards, maybe
Yeah.
after. No, it's so important to not laugh away the pain, and to really, because that's another, of course, another trick of the ego, to
Mm.
just use laughter. I see that in my retreats too sometimes, you know, where you see
Mm.
people, they want to be funny, they want to get a reaction out of someone because they're avoiding actually their inner world, you know? So
Mm.
there's two ways to anything, everything, you know?
Mm.
But I think remembering to laugh when we like me, I can be very much also like really using everything for healing, and then sometimes going in
Right.
too deep. Like
Yeah.
even that the ego can use again. Okay, we need more healing, and we need to do
Hmm.
more workshops and more lessons and more, instead of just remembering like, hey, I'm already home, you know, I'm already healed.
Mm.
Remember to enjoy, remember to laugh, and bring some
Mm.
lightness and play into your awakening, you know? Don't be so serious. Um,
Brilliant.
I think that's very important, and definitely a pitfall. What you said also about the intellectualizing of A Course in Miracles, I think that's such a common pitfall for a lot of course students, you know,
Mm.
to make it all so intellectual, to maybe even, yes, some people actually do memorize the course by heart, and they can say every lesson and every word, you know, and it doesn't mean anything if it's not embodied, if you don't truly feel it in your heart, you
Yeah.
know. So again, yeah, coming back to music, I think that's one of the ways. um, that is so powerful to bring it into the heart because God is experienced. God is, we can talk about it all we want,
mm,
but God is experienced. It's in the experience. It's not in the words. Um,
mm,
so the words are just pointing towards something, and they can be very helpful if we really allow them to bring us where it's pointing towards, and that's always within. That's not somewhere
mm.
else. So I think
Thank you.
that's it's so
Thank you.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
really love
so
that.
important for people. And I think it goes hand in hand as well with that for a lot of course students, of course, the body can become this symbol of sin, and this symbol of, oh, that's really the realm of the ego. So any type of body work, breath work, even just moving your body,
Mm,
dancing, or maybe even also singing, anything like involved with the body,
mm.
um, equals staying stuck in the
Yeah,
illusion,
I know
you
exactly
know?
what you mean. Yeah. And it's a really good point that I'm really pleased you brought that up because in a sense, my growth through that potential pitfall has been supported, some of it actually only in like the last 6 months of like non-course material again. So there's an amazing guy called Angelo DeLulo, and I think he's like an ethicist or something. He had awakening like
Sounds
donkeys. You,
familiar.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant because he's like really on the level, and he loves Zen, which is, you couldn't get more humorous and just like, the whole thing with Zen is basically, here's something that I'm going to present to you, knowing that you can't answer it with your intellectual mind. The whole construct of it means that you can't answer it. And when you were talking, then I was thinking about one of the sayings I like from Zen is like all talking about silence is mere noise. Some,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
of
yeah,
just like
exactly. You
boom,
gotta become silent and experience the
to
silence.
experience the love of God. So
Mhm.
yeah, some of this stuff's only just been reinforced in the last 6 months by this book that my good friend told me to read. And again, what it does is it helps, like you're saying about this thing with the body. And I've noticed myself in the past when people go, "This world was made as an attack on God. You're not supposed to enjoy. It's like
Yeah,
we're not supposed to be here and the body and all." It's
yeah.
like, okay,
Mm.
yeah, right. But when you were talking about the importance of laughter, it reminded me of my first guest who I asked to come on at episode 50 because of what she means to me, because she's an absolute shining light. And she said to me, "You can only be in the moment when you laugh." And I was like, wow, I love that. I hadn't articulated it like that for myself. And then when I put that together with the stuff that I've learned through Angelo, of like through meditation, through just sitting and observing the activity of the mind, it's the sense information that
Mm.
you get from your dun, 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 evil body,
Mm.
that puts you in the moment. It's like
Mhm.
breathing, listening
Mhm.
to my clock ticking in the kitchen, where I'm just, those things bring me into the moment. And in the moment is my identity as just an observer that's connected to everything.
Yeah.
And there's no nouns, there's just the verb of looking. There's nothing, there's no looker, there's no object to look at, there's just looking. And that's come through my body, that's come through the senses. So I really appreciate that you've said that, because music is listening. Although we can say all talking about silence is mere noise and understand the inference and the humor of that, they're still signposts. I remember a guy saying we can use the language of duality without believing in it.
Mhm.
Like, brilliant.
Mhm.
So language, listening,
Yeah, it
It-
all comes down again to the purpose, what
yeah.
I said in the beginning. That's really what it's about. Um, to know everything, like the body itself is also it's neutral. That's what A Course in Miracles is also teaching. It's neutral. It doesn't have any meaning. We give meaning to it,
Yeah.
and when we use it for the ego, just like anything, it just becomes a tool to confirm separation, to
Mhm.
um just stay asleep even longer, and that's okay also,
Yeah.
because eventually there is no chronological time, and you'll get there whenever, that in the beginning of the course it says this is a mandatory course. It means like everyone eventually will um fully wake up. In truth, of course, like yeah, it's not chronological, so
Yeah.
it all already happened, but in sort of like this experience of our time and space, it's like it seems like, okay, it takes a long time sort of to get there, and everybody has their own tempo and but once you really see like, hey, I just want to use everything for the purpose of healing, then your relationships, your body, your relationship to food, to whatever you do becomes a gateway for healing
Mm.
when you use it for that purpose, and it can become very helpful. So, and I think to really experience like what I see with the work that I share, the voice liberation work, I'm
Mm.
really using the voice to actually vocalize those stuck grievances. It's just so helpful because we can, in our mind, say about the trauma that we've experienced, like, or the grievances that we still hold, like, okay, this is my brother, he's a holy son of God, he's a holy son of God, like, and we can repeat all these lessons. Um, but we don't really believe it, because it's not our experience.
Yeah.
There is this beautiful scene that I was allowed to post on my YouTube channel of a retreat where I gave voice liberation, and it was at David Hoffmeister's community in Utah,
Okay.
and they shot a beautiful movie of it. It's called Take Me Home.
Okay. Nice one.
Um, And there's this one scene where one of the sound guys, he came for a session with me, a private session. And I kind of, at first started to ask him like, okay, what's going on for you? I didn't know. Only later I saw the the movie, and I realized what was going on for him really in the days before, but I didn't know anything, and he was just sharing about that he wanted to trust God, and I invited him to sing in that, so he's singing like, I want to trust God, but I could hear, like we said in the beginning of our pre-talk, like it wasn't true. It wasn't his authentic experience. It was
Yeah.
this intellectual thing of what he felt he was supposed to say or supposed to feel. Like as a good course student, we're supposed to want the love of God. We want to, but if we really wanted the love of God, we would have the love of God because the love of God is already available. So it's actually the moment that I'm in pain and I'm saying, I want the love of God, that is already like, I need to look at like, wait, but the love of God is already available. Why am I in pain? It must mean that there's resistance towards allowing in the love of God. That's really our practice, is to look at the resistance.
Mm.
So he was sharing this, and the beautiful thing with the voice is that it makes us so naked. You can instantly hear it in someone's voice
Mhm.
when it's just not true. It
Mm.
was very off tune. It was not at all like, you could just feel it in the energy, like, hey, there's something else underneath here.
Mm.
And I heard the clear guidance saying, have him say, I don't trust God. I don't trust. And this was one of the first times I actually started to teach. So I was still getting used to getting, those inner guidance, though that
Yeah.
inner voice, and kind of like myself go like, I myself had that judgment, like, no, but that's not spiritual. Like, I can't ask it, you know? But
Sure.
Spirit was so clear, like, no, ask him to sing, I don't trust. And so I asked him, I proposed the idea, like, hey, how would it be for you to sing I Don't Trust? And it's a beautiful video. I invite everyone to check it out, or maybe you can put a
Oh,
link in
yeah,
the show notes.
definitely.
You instantly see his whole being, his whole energy just shifts completely. And it's like this, I don't trust, it's like this, like, yeah, that's honest, that's honest right now. And he needed to give space to that, that needed to be allowed to be there without judgment. So once that was out, he could come to the place that was underneath the desire of like, but I want to trust. It feels, it's painful not to trust. But we cannot spiritually bypass those steps. We cannot be full of all of these grievances and pain from what we've experienced in our seeming past, but
Hmm.
that for us seems very real.
Mm.
And be like, oh, but I'm not a body. Oh, all these things are not real. Oh, none of that ever happened because I'm actually not really here. I'm actually not this body. I'm like, yeah, that's all very true intellectually, but do you actually believe that? Is that actually your experience? If it was your experience, you wouldn't be reading A Course in Miracles, Like if it was really your experience, like you would experience the peace of God like in every moment, and you would be fully awake, So I think it's so important for people to really get in touch with those barriers that they've placed against the love they truly are, and to really stop spiritually bypassing their feelings,
Mm.
and to really feel like allow space for their feelings, not to make them real, not to wallow and drown in them, um, but to really shine a light upon them. And that's for me the work that I've been really guided to offer, first for myself, because I used to be the biggest spiritual bypasser and not at all giving space to my emotions, and just always having a smile on my face, like, I'm good, everything is fine. I had to learn to really give space to everything that was there. And now I'm so happy to do that for others. And then I see the transformation
Mm.
is um unimaginable when people are allowed. Like the last retreat I did in Bali, we did a session where we had a conversation with God. I let them sit in front of each other, and the person that started um, was basically sitting in front of God, and they got to share all of their grievances and basically hatred also towards God. They just were invited to share all of it. So not just this, oh hi God, oh yes, I love you. And no, they got to really pour out their rage, their
Mm.
sadness, their anger, their even like letting go of being this good Course in Miracles student that knows that, oh yeah, I know God has nothing to do with this because God is perfect love and God did not create this universe. But deep within, there was still also this part that was like, no, like you left me, you abandoned me, you did this, you did that. And to get that out of it, get that out of their system, and then through music and through the voice also just cry and shout and express that in sound. And then I invited them to tell God, like, what is it that they've always wanted to hear from God, basically. What is a sentence that they want God to tell them? And after everything was released, all of those grievances, that hurt, that anger, they've given space through that, through sound. They were invited to become still and just receive God
Mm.
telling them this sentence over and over. And it was so incredibly powerful, and it's because they released the grievances and the resistance that there still was towards receiving the love of God, that the moment that God basically shared this, like, I love you, you're my innocent child, or whatever it was that
Yeah.
they really wanted to hear, they could receive it. You know, they were open to receive it.
Wow.
And this is the process that I take people through, you know, not spiritually bypass and instantly go like, "Oh yeah, I love God, I love," like, no, actually go towards the self-hatred, go towards the hatred towards God, go towards you know, like Baron Katie has her judge your neighbor worksheet. It's basically the same thing in a way, you know.
Mm.
Uh yeah, just a different form, but it's really using your judgments,
Mhm.
using your grievances, using your pain that are there. Like if you say that you don't have that, um, it's most likely that you're very much in denial
Yeah.
of what is really going on, you know, unless
Yeah.
you're already fully
Mm.
awakened. But it's to actually use them to first really shine a light upon that, so that what is underneath, which is just perfect love that was always there, you're able to see it and to accept it and to allow it in, you know. So we need to go inward. We need to shine a light upon those blockages, and that doesn't look um so spiritual and so like I'm a fairy and like it gets really intense, you know, and I'm always excited when people, you know, even my last retreat, like even in the first intention, I see the people that come down more often. There was one woman that just started already, like, yeah, I want to look at my self-hatred, you know, like when people already come in with intentions like that, I'm like, fuck yes, you know, like I fucking love that, you know, of like, yes, let's do this, let's go there. And another woman that was already sharing about her hatred towards God, you know, it's like, and she, you know, she's a Course in Miracles student, you know, but she could actually vocalize that, like how angry she was towards God. I love that. I love when people come with those things,
Mm.
because the fact that they're aware of that and they come to my retreat, for me it's like the most powerful thing, because it means that they're aware of that, but they don't want to keep that story. Otherwise,
Mhm.
they wouldn't come to me,
Wow.
because their subconscious already knows, like, okay, this is something that is going to get healed, you know. So a lot of people have these things, but they want to keep them, so they either not at all talk about them, they pretend it's not there, so they keep
Right.
it hidden, or it becomes their favorite story basically, and they're like, I was so abused by my parents, I was so this, I have so much trauma, and it becomes their, even though it looks so painful and they say they want to be, you know, healed from all of that, like they keep it very close, you know, they actually don't want to release that.
Mm.
So when people come in with those stories, with those things, but I can see the fire in their eyes, like, but I'm here and I'm scared, but I'm willing, you know. I'm always like my whole I get so much energy from that, you know. I'm like, yes, let's fucking do this. So I am so there's, you know, so courageous, such courageous people, and I love that. Yeah.
That's so cool. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing all of that. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
And
It is so powerful.
there's a few things that I always know when we're on the good foot with these conversations in the podcasts, because they start to circle in on themselves, and there's like a theme starts to show itself. Excuse me. So there's a few things that I can feel from that beautiful sharing. And one again is like, as you emphasized earlier, the importance of that introduction. It's on the stuff that's on that bloody first page in A Course in Miracles. It's all there. It's not hiding from you on that very first page.
No, it's not being as secretive about it, right?
No,
It's
it's
here it
right
is.
there.
Here it
One
is.
one of the things is that, when it says this course makes no attempt to teach the meaning of love, because that's what is
Mm,
beyond what can be taught.
that's who you
It's like,
are.
there you
Mhm.
go, right? So as you're just explaining, it's not about that. It's about the resistance. That's what we need to look at. And if we don't look at it and we deceive ourselves, or we purposefully bypass it, or we carry it as this lovely little story, then that's where we're up to. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But equally, that circles in on itself as well with the conversation, because when we talk about intellectualizing the course and we talk about the metaphysics, if we think about the marriage of understanding the metaphysics of the course and then
Yeah.
the experiential application of what the course points to, which is this radical form of forgiveness, which has got nothing to do with what we were told forgiveness means in terms of the history of the world.
Hmm.
We're given the opposite in the Song of Prayer pamphlet. It says that we're going to call forgiveness to destroy. It's like,
Yeah.
Neda, you were mean to me the other day. I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to forget about that because I'm the better person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Ned was mean to me the other day. I'll just pop that in my pocket in
Yeah.
case I need to lay that card in the future. But
Yeah.
for the purpose of this
Totally.
moment, I've forgiven you, that kind of
Mm.
bullshit, compared to this radical interpretation of like this form of forgiveness is like you are not going to apply any meaning, you're not going to project a meaning, you're just going to observe, you're not going to try and change things, you're just going to sit quietly, watch, and blah blah blah. And that that sort of metaphysics, I sort of say to people, look, the course, if you use the word mythology, I know Ken used to use the word mythology and it was really helpful for me. It's like the mythology of A Course in Miracles, as you referenced earlier, into eternity, where everything was one. They crept a tiny mad idea where the Son of God remembered not to laugh. It's like a little tiny bit of poetry. And another thing with Ken is like, read this book like a big poem.
Mm.
You read it like an instruction manual and you're trying to cross-reference what you saw on page 600 with, hold on a minute, what did it say on page 67? It's a living document.
Mm.
As you grow, it meets you where you are because
Mm.
it's so deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll often use, like, say, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd as an example for this because it
Mm.
meant a lot to me. Um, Dark Side of the Moon, when it was recorded in 1972, was Dark Side of the Moon. It had all the elements in it on that day when it came out. They were always there. When I listened to Dark Side of the Moon at the age of 20, I went, oh my God, listen to that vocal line. Beautiful. Then at 25, it's like, oh, listen to that vocal line and listen to what the keyboards are doing under it. Wow.
Yeah.
Then at 30, oh my God, listen to the vocal harmony on that. Oh my God, listen to what he's doing on the cymbals. All of those things were there in 1972. The only thing that's changed in those
Yeah.
10, 20, 30 years is my capacity to zoom in and see that picture on a greater
Yeah.
scale.
I think so many course students, right, their thing is, even my mom was saying it the otter day, she's been studying A Course in Miracles for many years as well, and reading, it's like, did I read this
Yeah.
lesson before? I think a lot of course students have that where they read something and it's like,
Has this always
what?
been in
Was
here?
this in here before? Like, no, they like somebody must have come in my house and like just taped another
Dr.
lesson.
Page in.
They changed it.
So,
Yeah.
with that principle, with the mythology, with the metaphysics, with the forgiveness, the metaphysics are important. Oh, I'm not really here, I'm not a body, all of that. But like you said, uh, that can help. It does help you as in terms of like a lovely presence of light.
Yeah.
But you're still in the world with resistance to God's love,
Yeah.
in whatever form it comes to you. And if you can use Ken Wapnick's thing of saying, read it like a poem, look at it as a mythology. It's just one way of explaining a story that humanity's told to itself over a couple of 100,000 years, as far as we understand it. Is like there was nothing, then this thing appeared, which could be called thought or consciousness, and then all of this played out, and then it disappeared and it went back to nothing. This cycle, in Hindu traditions, we're on like the seventh cycle of that
Yeah.
principle of a big bang, in terms of like a thought entering awareness, perfect awareness, and then consciousness arises and da da da. But you need both, or some people do. Not everybody does. Some people aren't so in need of understanding the metaphysics, but it's not necessarily a place to stay as like a comfortable blanket to just go, oh great, nothing's real, I'm not even here, linear time isn't real, oh I've never left God, and all of that. And then you're in your car
Yeah,
going
it,
bam
it
bam.
can be. I mean, like for the ego, it can also be like, what? That's crazy. Like I want to be an individual person, you know? It's again like where you look at it from. For me, the metaphysics, I do think it's important, like as a I see it like really as a foundation.
Yeah.
And I do think it's really important to know the metaphysics
Hmm.
and because it's something for me also that I always come back to. I think if the metaphysics are a little bit vague, you're you can make a lot of exceptions
Right.
with
Good.
what
Yeah.
you perceive in the world, you know? And
Yeah.
I think when the metaphysics are really strong, it really helps you to use everything for healing and not
Hmm.
to kind of yeah, just put water in the wine and kind of like be a little bit here, a little bit there.
Mm.
So I think it's important, and it's also what Jesus teaches, you know, at the introduction of the workbook.
Hmm.
Um, that he says that, you know, the like an understanding of the metaphysics is important to be able to do the lessons, you know,
Yeah. That's
to
brilliant. Yeah.
really, yeah,
Great
and
point.
I think in that way it is very good, but that it's once people stay stuck in the metaphysics, I think that's where it then goes wrong, you know, or like where you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
goes wrong. I mean, it's everyone's path, but where you can take longer than is necessary, you
That's
know. I think it's just important to have the metaphysics, which is actually basically nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Like that actually basically sums up the whole metaphysics. Like
that's it.
um, but that is the house, you know, that's the foundation of the house. And
Yeah.
then from there, the lessons,
Yeah.
they're practical. It's a workbook.
Hmm.
So they're there to take with you into the world and to experience whatever you experience, apply them to your daily life. Like the workbook doesn't tell you like, okay, now you know the metaphysics, now you go sit in a cave and you know you'll do these lessons until you're enlightened. It actually constantly, Jesus is actually constantly inviting us to become very practical, to apply those lessons to our relationships, to whatever occurs without exception. He's especially in the beginning part of the workbook lessons, he's constantly inviting us to make no exceptions, you know,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
nothing in this room means anything. He's really instructing, like, don't eliminate anything from that. Like, oh
Mm.
no, but this, you know, beautiful piano that I wrote all of these, no, this does really mean something, you know? It's like very clear on that. So yeah, the metaphysics are important as a strong foundation, and not to make exceptions with your teachings, you know, and with what you're learning about yourself, about the world. But yeah, for me, is the metaphysics are so they're so in me. So that's why also like when I'm writing something, or when I'm writing a song, I cannot not write something that is not like in line with that.
Yeah.
But it's just in me, you know. It's not something that I have to now go study or something, you know, or anything.
Gotcha.
It's just now like, okay, with anything that comes up, it's always bringing it back again. So okay, but forgiveness, you know, that forgive and the forgiveness is very practical for me as well. It's what we I have a workshop coming up in December in Holland, where I'll guide people through a forgiveness session. Um, because there's one of the workbook lessons where he kind of almost gives like a step one, two, three of looking inward, taking back projection, and then, you know, handing it over and have it be replaced, you know, like really forgiveness in action is in every moment that we're triggered, It's to really pause and look inward and see what is really touched upon in within me right here, right now. It's always a deeper belief. Overall, the belief in separation, yes, but even that can be a little bit vague. Often we can't really connect with it.
Mm.
So I always invite people to really find the belief that hurts, when they think about this situation. Like, what if you would give a microphone to the ego, you would invite him on the stage. What is the ego How is the ego narrating this situation? What is it saying? It's saying something like, yeah, this wouldn't have happened if you were good enough. Like, this wouldn't have happened if you were worthy of the love of God. I mean, it's obvious that this happens because you're very sinful and you're guilty. It's like,
Mhm.
ask the ego, basically, like, what is your narrative? What is the belief here? And you'll feel it like, ooh, yeah, this situation, it's actually what is really hurting is this belief. And it's often also very much connected to a memory that we had from the past, something that it
Mm.
triggers from the past. And when we can find those moments, those beliefs within ourselves, what I invite people then to do is actually sound in that feeling. So that belief of being unworthy, like, what does that sound like? And to really inhale into that belief in unworthiness and exhale in whatever sound, whatever sigh, whatever shake wants to come up and out. And really using the voice basically as a big light, like a flashlight, going inward, finding where is that belief active in me? Where does that live in me? Where am I protecting that belief?
Mm.
Where am I keeping that belief prisoner in my mind?
Mm.
And it's so incredible, like, when we go there with our voice, and especially in a group, with the united purpose of the group, it always feels even more intense and so powerful. And then to really give that belief over to spirits. Say, like, no, I don't want to believe this anymore. Have this be replaced for me. Have all my grievances be replaced for miracles, which is also one of my favorite lessons. Have all my grievances be replaced for miracles, because in there also Jesus is inviting us to first look at our grievances. You got to look at them, like, look at the judgment that you have, be honest about it. Look at the he's really asking us, like, see this person in front of you, see the sin that you've put on him, review his past, like, because we can be so spiritual of, like, oh yeah, no, he's my brother, and yeah, but it's not true. Like, you can probably, like, have a whole list with all the things that you think is wrong about him, so be honest about that. Like, bring that to the light. Don't keep that in, and don't try to spiritually bypass it. Bring it to the light, not to make it real, not to say it indeed, like, to forgive, to destroy, to kind of like, he
Mhm.
did all of this, but because I'm such a angel, I'm gonna forgive this in spite of all of these horrible things that he's done, yeah, then it's the forgiveness to destroy. But I see it like a big cleanup. It's like, oh, this is what I'm believing about him. Why? Because it's what I'm believing about myself, ultimately. It's just a reflection of myself.
Yeah.
So we look at those things, not to make them real, but to really release it, actually to clean it from our mind.
Wow.
And then indeed, there's not even a forgiveness of the other person. It's really the other person was just helping us to release whatever blockages there were still alive inside of me, that was keeping me from
Mm.
fully remembering the love I truly am. And then forgiveness becomes such a powerful way for healing, because now he became my teacher from
Mhm.
being this enemy. Now he becomes my savior, and that's forgiveness in action. And that's something that we're invited to each and every moment. Whenever you're triggered, just watch your mind, pause, go inward, you know don't try to spiritually bypass it. Don't throw course lessons at it. You know, sit with it. Sit with it. Ask Jesus for help to really get to the core of it. And yeah, that's how, at least for me, and a lot of the people that I've worked with and am working with, it's tremendously healing, and how fast of a speed up um, comes in when we really use this active forgiveness.
Mm.
Yeah, it's wow. It's
Boom. I love that. That's so cool, and I really
yeah,
appreciate that. And also, I mean, what that does is like that draws in, takes me back to September when you and I met, and when I was blessed to watch your performance on the Saturday night at the festival. And then I'm not sure if it would have been Saturday or the next day when I came to chat to you for the first time, and to just to 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 thank you for what you are and what you do and what you share. And I think I used a word like formula or something, and you laughed and said it back to me like formula, because it couldn't help having like the musician's view of the construct,
right.
if we can use that word playfully. Um, and being a man as well, technical manual, woman, heart, feel, bloke, head. All right, okay.
Yeah.
Um, and now what I'm sort of like adding to that, in addition to that experience through your beautiful sharing, is like the Einstein thing that I'll often quote of like, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Mm,
If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old kid, it's because
mm,
you don't understand it well enough. And
mhm,
what you've just explained is perfectly clear. And it's perfectly clear. And it's something that you can offer because it's something that you have experienced. So, therefore, you can fill it with the lightness of the authentic truth of knowing that it works because it's worked for you. um, and then that's what I had the joy of like witnessing that. And as I said to you, it's like I had this beautiful position in the room where I could see everybody else in there and all of these different combinations. And we had your amazing piano playing and singing and just like gentle sort of like guidance and direction through this experience. Um, and giving everybody the permission on the whole, and the permission individually in their little splintered off groups, whether that was twos or threes of people who were applying your idea. And it was to tell one another that you're worthy, and to watch people say that. And again, when I'm listening to you sharing there, I'm thinking about the choir, and like, so I was thinking about how when people sing, you can put more into your voice. You've got less place to hide because
mhm,
we're just hearing you singing from the heart, not whoever that is,
mhm.
opposed to words. And what we learn when we come through childhood to adulthood, when we get to that point where we're kids and we're like, I can see what that adult's saying to that other adult, but it's not true. Because I'm not in that headspace yet. I'm interpreting this on the level of energy which is real, and that isn't true. And there's the same sort of application of that between talking and singing. It's like, as you said earlier, you can't really hide when you're singing, especially if you're going to sing from the heart. But then in this group setting, people are almost like they have the comfort of the choir. So that, if we muted everyone else for a moment and they're going, come by, my Lord, like, shit, I've been found out. Whereas when it's all like full
Yeah,
on, you can
definitely
then,
helps when there's like a big group. You
yeah,
kind of
find your voice so
fall
that
into these voices. Yeah.
yeah, and pour yourself into that voice. And as I said to you, like more than once, it's like the efficacy, the actual that you know, to see that in action working, and to see people releasing all these tears, and like the replacement for those tears being the shoulders dropping, you know, through the
Yeah.
permission and allowing,
Yeah.
it absolutely 100% works. And it was an absolutely beautiful thing to witness, and to just watch that room, just all of that, as my friend calls it, the infinite lightness of being, to see
Yeah.
that just amplify and magnify and grow through that congregation, through being directed really gently by you with
Yeah.
something that works. How do you know it works? Guess what? Because it's worked for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful. And I think it's also interesting, how singing, the voice, is one of the, I think, the biggest thing, at least for the people in the West, that almost everyone will go like, I can't sing. I can't sing.
Mm.
Like, as
Yeah.
a little kid, everyone knew the power of their voice, not consciously, but subconsciously, because they would just express their voice very freely. They would dance and sing as babies, Every little kid does that. They're little pamper buds, and they're just moving and singing. They don't have this concept still of shame or I'm not good enough, they just express themselves very authentically.
Yeah.
And very soon, the more the ego identification is built, and we learn, that, we're not good, we cannot sing, we should be quiet, we should behave, we should be a good girl, we should be a good boy.
Mm.
um and singing really, even though there's not even just the spiritual, the healing, inner healing benefits, even scientifically, that just the health benefits of singing. They've done so many research now of how healthy it is, to sing, for just so many physical benefits. But I think for spiritually and healing, and especially in combination, like with the Course of Miracles, it's interesting. I think it should be also looked at like when the ego is loudly saying like not to go inward. I think with the voice the same, that the ego is loudly screaming out, you can't sing, you should stay quiet. Like, you should be suspicious of the ego saying that so loudly, because it is in my opinion really one of the biggest tools for healing, is using the voice with
Mm.
really as a tool to really release our inner blockages. And
Mm.
I've been to many retreats, also many Course in Miracles retreats, and something that is very healing is shining a light upon those private thoughts and upon those blockages. But I see people do that only in words. And the thing is, when we do that only in words, is that we'll still stay stuck in that intellectual part of our mind, unless there's sometimes really a breakthrough in these words, where you just break through in crying, and you can really feel it. And that can definitely happen sometimes. But I feel with when we actually let go of the words, this is what we do in my retreats, is that we'll explore a certain topic. Like last time in Bali, for instance, we do it in pairs. We discover the topic of guilt, shame, and anger, and so we'll go in different rounds. First, for instance, let's say with anger, we express in words like things that can still really trigger anger in us, or with shame, things that we can really still feel like, oh, I feel so much shame or so much guilt around that. And we express about that very vulnerably, very transparently, and to really shine a light upon all of those parts that we're still hiding, that we're trying to like keep in the dark. But at some point, when they're done expressing, I can just feel like, yeah, but that which they're talking about, it's still, you can still feel it. It's in the body. Like it wants to come out, and it I don't see any other way for at least what I'm offering than to sing that out, to release that out in expression, in sound. And this is not a performance, this is not singing a song, this is letting go of words and just letting out those grievances, those feelings of guilt, of anger, having given the space, like with the anger topic, for instance, we were looking out on this really beautiful rice field where our workshop space, like where we held the sessions, is like a little bit higher above, and so it's all open. It's there's no windows, so it's all just completely open. It's a round space. It's gorgeous, and all around is just these big rice fields. And so after expressing like the anger, I had them standing, above and in front of the rice fields with their partner just in their back, like supporting them and being there for them. And I just allow them to just express that anger into the rice fields, in like releasing whatever sound wanted to come out. And I'm guiding them on the piano, and to see that, like, that depth of rage and the sadness underneath, really those blockages, that stuff, when you see what comes out, I'm like, well, that was in there. It wouldn't come out if it wasn't in there.
Mm.
So when you see what comes out, it's like that doesn't happen from just sitting in front of each other and talking about it, you
Right.
know? When we let go of the words and we really sink into sound, we access a place within us where we've experienced it, where it feels real for us, you know? And that is a very bodily experience, because all of the grievances that we've experienced come from being identified with a body. So I think it's also actually really beautiful that with that, then we actually use the body
Yeah.
to release that which has been caused by a body identification.
Yeah.
It's kind of like using itself as its own medicine,
Hmm.
of like, yes, you had all of these grievances because you were identified with the body. So now we'll use the body to actually release that those grievances and those places where you're still asleep, to the truth of who you are. And it's just so incredibly powerful, and it's such a fast track for healing once we incorporate the body in that sense. I think breath work is a very powerful tool as well. I work in the Holland retreat. I work with a colleague of mine who's an amazing breath worker, and I myself have experienced a lot of healing through breath work, and I'm sure there's other somatic tools that people can use, but I do feel like it has to be something that is somatic, something that is in the experience, in where in the body, in the where we have to meet it where it's at, and not just sit and think and intellectualize it. And not that it cannot be done, of course, because there were people like Eckhart Tolle that just had this thought of, I can't live with myself. Who is the I that can't live with myself? There's two eyes. Who am I? Boom, and like he's awake,
Yeah.
But then now I see people that will use that, like, you're not, they'll repeat that, and they'll say
Yeah.
like, if you cannot live with yourself, like, and they trying to repeat it, but it's like that was his experience, and that's one in a billion of experiences. And
Mm.
so and of course people should go where they're attracted to go. So I also don't want to tell people like you should do this,
No.
but this is indeed my way, and I see this has really worked for me and has worked for the people that I work with. And there's just an invitation, yeah, if people also feel like, yeah, that resonates with me. I think also there's a thing in, I don't know if it's yeah, for me it's also true with like women and men, that a lot of the old sort of spiritual practice teachings come from men. And I think
Mm.
for a lot of men, it works very well to have this discipline, like even with meditation, like the Vipassana, like
Yeah.
sitting still and being in meditation for hours. It's a very masculine approach to awakening, which I think works for a lot of men, you know? And I think for women, now we try to also do that, whereas we are naturally much more flowy and, you know, if we're meditating, our body wants to move, you know,
Mm.
we're fluid and um playful and uh yeah, much more in connected to the heart and stuff. So I think also for a lot of women it's important to honor that, and
Mm.
that it's really beautiful to incorporate dance and music and play and whatever it is into your spiritual teachings, you know, and that it doesn't have to be this I'm sitting still all day. And I do see more and more men also that come to my retreats is definitely still not balanced, and that they also are really longing for something that is much more embodied and more sinking from the head into the heart.
Mm.
um, but I think it's yeah, it's important for yeah, I think both. It doesn't even really matter whether you're a man or a woman, but just to really honor that that when you have that desire to really get more into the hearts,
Mm.
that that's a beautiful yeah, that's a beautiful desire that you can really honor, and that it doesn't have to be this strict, you know, how back in the days they used to like hit you on the head if you if you would move an inch. I mean, like, yeah, different times, different ways, you know, and I love it. I love to incorporate play. I also incorporate dance in my retreats. I incorporate games even, you know, funny little games that we do with clapping and stamping. And I think maybe we did something of that in England, right? Didn't
Okay.
we do
Yeah.
it with the respond and the
Yeah.
um yeah, I love for it to be more um, alive, you
Mm.
know, and not so serious. And um,
But that doesn't take, that actually adds to your offering, doesn't it? By
it does. It
yeah.
goes so deep.
Mm.
That too, because I'm definitely a lover of really going all the way. Like
Yeah.
yeah, people that come to my workshops, they're usually people that have done a lot of work, that have studied A Course in Miracles for a long time already,
Hmm.
and they love the the depth, you know, they love
Yeah.
the intenseness. They're not into, oh, I just want to sit and listen to a teacher talk all
Mm.
day and, you know, kind of, yeah, just an inactive type of thing. It's definitely for people that want to do the work. But yeah, different strokes for different folks, of course. It's like ultimately all roads lead back home. It's a journey without distance, you
Yeah.
know, and I think it's but I think it's just important to not deny the attraction that you feel for certain things, you know? I
Mm.
think like if you feel attracted to music, if you feel attracted to boxing or whatever it is, you know,
Sure.
now it can be this thing of like, oh no, but that's not spiritual.
Hmm.
Like it's only spiritual if I do yoga, or it's only spirit, you know? It's like no, the ego can do yoga like just as much as the spirit can do boxing, you know? Like it's like honor where you have that attraction. Um the Course in Miracles doesn't say anything about behavior in the form. It's not about the form, you know. It doesn't have a curriculum of, you know, if you're a good Course in Miracles student, you'll have this kind of job, you'll eat this kind of food, you wake up at this time, you'll have these kind of friends, you live in this kind of house or in this area of the world. You know, it would never talk about that because it's not on the level of the form, it's really on the level of the mind. um and therefore it's it doesn't really matter like what you do in the world in that sense. It's all it all what really matters is what purpose do you give it, and who are you doing that with, you
Yeah.
know, and what are you doing it for. And once you really get that difference right, yeah, then each and every moment becomes a moment for remembering who you are and accepting the love of God, basically.
It's another boom moment. Shame you
Another
haven't
boom moment.
got. It's bringing up a few beautiful things for me there. One is making me laugh internally, thinking when I was a drummer in a heavy metal band, the sort of music that could make the paint peel, it was really heavy. Little did anyone know that I'd written all the lyrics and it was all Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And even the title of the album was called Practice Dying Every Day.
Wow.
And obviously in heavy metal circles, they'll all go, yeah, let's practice dying every day. And
Denying death.
it's like, well, actually,
It's all who you look at it with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just to refer back to my sharing about how other things support my Course in Miracles love. And it's been a real theme for me in the last couple of years, I guess, because I've journeyed with the course for as long as I have. Although, like we said earlier, you keep coming back to it and you're going, bloody hell, who put this page in here? That wasn't in there this morning. That experience, because
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
a living document and it meets us. Blah, blah, blah. Um, because, and I sometimes use like an analogy of like the gallery again. So let's say we go into the gallery and there's an absolutely incredible painting by Vermeer or somebody or someone of that stature, and you're looking at this kind of like technical masterpiece that is beautiful as well. And you look at it because it attracts you, because somewhere you want to be able to find your version of doing what that is.
Mm.
And then when you're in harmony with that, when you've moved through that and you do what it is that you do in the same way, and I'll always quote The Prophet by Kahil Gibran, which is like, work is love made visible.
Mm.
Whatever you do, and he says in the book, he's like, if you can't make a loaf of bread with love, go and sit outside the temple and receive money from people who can, because that loaf is only going to satisfy half of somebody's hunger.
Mm.
So when you go into that gallery initially because you are like, wow, look at that, and then that evolves to you, quote unquote, if you like, to the point where you're just going in the gallery because you just love being near that painting, which is absolutely amazing. That's kind of like relative to my experience with the course. And the course is so poetic and it paints such incredible pictures.
Mhm. For sure.
And the non-duality is like embellished with all of these fragrances and flavors and notes, and it's got all of that to this very, very simple core message.
Mhm.
So then what supported that for me has been Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Rupert Spira, Francis Lucille, Adyashanti,
Mhm.
Mooji, Papaji, all of these other guys
Mm.
who were pointing to the same. Again, to use an analogy, I would sometimes say to people, non-duality is like the water, and then all of these other flavorings are
Mm.
just like a twist on the fact that it's a glass of water or whatever. But because these things are simple, I don't know if I should say that, but because they're not as complex perhaps as A Course in Miracles, it helps with it helps me when I go back to the gallery. I've been looking at a painting that was like really direct. Nisargadatta, his book I Am That, is that's as good as A Course in Miracles all day long, every day of the week. But
Mm.
he's like, he punches you in the face with the simplicity. And if you ever see any footage of him, he's like, to people in his room. He's like, what are you doing that? Why are you thinking that? You're not that. You were that. And it's like, wow. But it's the same deal. So when I go back to A Course in Miracles, having looked through this other stuff, I'm like, wow, God, this is so beautiful. I can appreciate all of the flowery, poetic detail because I've spent some time with the simplicity of
Mm.
other systems that say the same thing. And one of the things that I've gleaned from Nisargadatta, which is incredible, is when he uses the word like prior to thought. And this notion of prior to has been really helpful for me. So it's like, if we do a Holy Spirit, use the purpose of everything to remember the love of God, which is always present. For me to think that prior to thought, who are you prior to thought? And again, it's to bring in that Zen thing that I was saying earlier. You know, the Zen koan thing is like, here's a question that I know you can't answer with your intellectual mind. It's
Mm,
actually designed to show you that you can't answer it with your intellectual mind. Because if you try and answer it with your intellectual mind, then you're wrong.
yeah.
And like Adyashanti will say, like, ask yourself, who am I? And then don't answer that question with a thought.
Mm,
And these things for me have just been like going, left, right, and center. And this pointing towards a state of awareness prior to thought, where there's something to be conscious of. And all of that comes flooding into me listening to you talk, because I then see the transfer value of you explaining to me. If I came to see you on a one-to-one in one of your workshops and I said, oh, I've got a problem with shame, and then you hear in your mind for me to say, Leon, how would you fancy singing I've got nothing to be ashamed of? And you've presented that to me in a way where I'm like, okay, I think you've snuck your way past all my defenses. I'm going to say, yeah, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. And then I start using those words. Then, as far as I understand it, then the evolution of that would be like, right, so now let's not say those words and just make a sound that's prior to those words. Is that correct?
yeah. So yeah, maybe this was a little bit confused because of the example I gave with the guide. I was actually pretty like different from how I usually do it. But
Mm-hmm.
how I usually do it in the retreats and the workshops is that first in words we'll just explore a certain topic, and it's always different. I never have a set of exercises. I really channel everything in the moment. Sometimes the day before I get a sort of glimpse of, I call it like remembering the future, because if it very much feels
Wow.
like I see the retreat how it was, and I was like, oh, that was like really beautiful, even though it still needs to happen. So I often get these sort of like time collapse, crazy
Amazing.
moments. It's really cool. But the form is kind of often a little bit similar in the way that we usually explore a topic in words in pairs. So for instance, with the shame,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get like maybe 15 minutes or something to just, without thinking about it, without trying to be a good course student, without trying to be, spiritual, whatever, just express in words wherever the topic of shame is still alive in you, things that you've done that you feel shameful for, certain beliefs, certain whatever it is, and the other person is only holding space. So they're not saying anything, they're not doing anything, they're not trying to solve your problem, they're not trying to say, oh no, it's fine, I have that as well, or oh, you think that's bad, wait till you hear my story, is they're just being present, which is a whole exercise on its own, because that's such a big thing, and
Mm-hmm.
they're practicing to really allow the spirit to perceive through them, and remember, like, to really practice true empathy. How Course in Miracles is teaching about that as well, to really see your brother as already complete, already whole, already healed, lacking absolutely nothing. So it's a beautiful practice for the space holder. And the person that is releasing is just without any stories, without trying to explain or justify, just as if you're going in your mind with just like a big broom and just like, okay, shame, where you at? Like, just come out here, and you just release all of it. And we usually take about like 15 minutes to just really, like a waterfall, just pour out anything that wants to be released. And really imagining, like, as you're sharing this, it's bringing it to the light. So it's not to make it real. It's not to be like, am I still okay? Is this allowed? But it's really to release it. It's to clean up our mind. And at some point, I'll start playing the piano and I invite people to let go of the words and express wherever that shame or whatever topic we're working with, where that lives inside their body, where they can feel it. And so it's the practice of breathing in to that feeling. So you really become aware of the sensations that are present for you. You breathe into it, and on an exhale, you let out whatever sound wants to come out. So this is without words. This is just sound, and it can sound like grunts, like cries, like screams. It's not about singing, really, about singing beautifully.
Mm.
It's just about giving space to wherever that frequency of shame is alive in us. And if you look at it on some level, even shame has a certain frequency. It has a certain
Right.
vibration
Right.
within our system, and that vibration can actually be sung. You can really
Right.
go there in awareness, and you can connect
Mm.
with that concept of shame and release it through your voice. And the
Wow.
other person, again, is just there to hold space and
Wow.
to witness and to see the innocence. And
Mm.
it's beautiful because you actually get to do the exercise twice in a way, because when you're holding space, you're actually seeing a part of your own mind. It's not the other person. It's always for you, and they're just exposing something that you might have not been aware of yet, and maybe you are. Oftentimes it's very synchronistic, the pairs that are formed. It's kind of like, oh, we have exactly the same things. Sometimes it's maybe some surprising stuff that may come up, but it's just you. The partner is it's a part of you, and they're expressing a part of you that needs to be released. So you as a space holder actually get an opportunity to hold space, um, and shine love upon a part of your mind that
Mm.
is still in the dark. And it's very powerful. I love working in pairs. Um, it's so powerful to be a witness for each other with that work. I don't do everything in pairs. Some work is just group work by ourselves. Sometimes there's one person that needs to give some extra space for something, and the rest of the group is supporting um, that one person in different kinds of ways. Again, that's
Right.
all very intuitive. Sometimes someone needs, for instance, that there's people standing behind them to hold their back or whatever,
Mm.
some extra supports. Um, yeah, it's very intuitive, but
So do you think that in terms of like tweaking the question as like a potential observation, do you think in terms of this prior to, if we went from the word shame to a sound to express shame to then like a frequency, you're saying that shame, even though again this marriage of metaphysics and the application of the course through the workbook would be the two different sides of the same coin. You can say, well, shame doesn't really exist, blah, 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 but it clearly appears to at the moment. Is that, I know you're clearly explaining that there's no set formula, no set pattern, but as you reflect on it now, do you think there's like a diminishing sequence to actually get into that core, that saying the word, making the sound, identifying the frequency, and then going beyond the frequency? Do you think that's there, or is that me looking at it from my point of view?
I don't know why. What is the purpose for your question? I think what I want. Like, what do you really
um,
wanna ask or know?
oh, okay, yeah. I think it's this prior to thing again of like, if something arises, like you when you were explaining about being a kid and
Hmm.
everyone wants to sing and wants to dance,
Hmm.
and then we don't realize about the concept of judgment. And one of my best friends, his dad passed away only in the last, it would have been 10 years ago, I think, in the last couple of days. And he has this picture of himself at home with his dad walking him down the street, and it's just so beautiful because he's like, he must be 2 or 3 years old, and he's got like the most amazing coloured glasses on, with a t-shirt that doesn't match a pair of shorts, and he's just like, he's put his whole thing on. He probably chose all of those clothes. He looks
Mm.
brilliant, and his dad's holding his hand, walking him down the road to be this version of himself. Um, and I'm thinking about my experience with music has been like, neither of my parents were musicians, but what they demonstrated to me in the home on a daily basis was how people, if they have that relationship with music, they can inhabit music. So there's certain people who would be in the same room as a song that's playing on the radio, and they'd be like physically and vocally completely silent and still, but they are connected with music in the way that they are. And then my experience with my mum and dad was like, showed me like, well, no, we sing along to it, we know all the words, and we do a little dance, and we do this kind of thing, you know. um, Neither of them are operatic singers. I got amazing memory of my dad. I was coming down the stairs, and the door to the lounge was open slightly, and I could hear this sound. It made me think, do I need to phone an ambulance or something? Because my dad was in with a pair of headphones on, and he was self-admittedly tone deaf, and he was singing along to Bob Dylan. So by the time you combine all of those things, it did sound like, you know, he was possibly in a lot of pain or whatever, but he was as much in that music as my mum doing the washing up at the sink. And that showed me like, right, okay, you get in music and you inhabit it and you sing along, and you know, but then at some point we become self-conscious, and we feel like we start to trim things down, and then stuff like shame can arise. So if you
Yeah.
looked at it in a linear sense, there's a period before, prior to the arrival of shame or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, but yeah, I think, of course, like if we really look at it in the metaphysics of course, the miracles, like the ego is already there, you know. It's not really it just, I think just the ego identification just grows, you know. That's why as a kid we still, you know, have this more, we're more in touch with the innocence of who we really are, but it's not that we're really taught um all of the ego stuff. You know, the ego is already there. It's, we
Yeah.
already chose to be identified with a body again, to incarnate again. You know, there's, and it's of course like all subconscious. So I think prior to everything, it's not even awareness, you know, because you know what a lot of teachings are teaching, like, oh, it is awareness, because of course the miracles, I think, is in that way very different, and it's good to not use any of the other teachings to dilute that message. Like if it's helpful to A Course in Miracles, I think it's beautiful, but I think there's also a lot of teachings that can dilute the teachings of A Course in Miracles, which is logical because yeah, like I said, the teachings of A Course in Miracles aren't really so comfortable for the ego. And I think the biggest part is that part of, we still want this individualism
Nice.
in yeah.
That was English spoken perfectly, wasn't it?
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like even with this awareness, we still want to be aware of something, you know, where
Mm.
the course is very clear about that. Like awareness was the first split. Like you gotta have duality to be aware of something, you know. So if you would say like what was prior, it we can't really express that in words because words automatically uh like express duality in a way, you know.
Oh,
But then
yeah.
then I would say oneness, love,
Yeah, I think
of God,
the course
and
does
that's
say like heaven's not a state or a condition, it's an awareness of perfect oneness.
yeah,
And then, like you said, then consciousness enters the frame, and then that's the split because now obviously there's something to be conscious of. There's
exactly.
someone to be conscious of something, and therefore there's still awareness, and we've got the
Yeah.
Trinity.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of this beautiful phrase too of like that the opposite of love is fear, but what is all encompassing can have no opposites. You know, and I think that's for me like prior to, I would then say prior to was just an all encompassing love
Mm,
that can have no opposites. And therefore, yeah, there's also not really that consciousness as in like I'm conscious of, like I'm
mm,
here and then there's still that like Eckhart Tolle, right? Okay, then who am I with the observer, the this, the that. In here within form, yeah, I feel it's very helpful to become that awareness and to look at your identity is this Neda. I can see her, It's like, oh yeah, that's something, like she's experiencing this. Oh, but I'm not one with that experience. Like I can observe it. But
mm,
it's still a layer
mm.
uh within the illusion,
Yeah.
and it's a very helpful layer, I think.
Okay,
But
that
it's
really helps. So maybe the prior to thing is like a, for me, it's like a presence thing as well. I mean, you're drawing, are you, if we just look at it as a stripping away, you're using words, you're using sound
yeah.
to get to the presence.
To get to the miracle, really, to
Yeah.
get into really what is underneath those, the like with the expressing and with the sound, we're releasing the barriers that we've placed against the love we truly are.
Gotcha.
So
Got you.
so what is left and what was, I guess,
Prior.
prior before identifying with any of those blockages and barriers and illusions and ego and all of that
Mm,
is just the love that never left.
mm,
The love that was always there, that is always there, that is who we truly are, that is the core. It's the like the sun with the clouds that are covering it, with the expressing of the shame or whatever it is, those grievances, and then the sounding. It's like we're releasing those clouds and that
mm,
sun that was always there. We get to experience it again and remember like, oh yeah, all right, there was love there was light there, this is what was true.
mm,
So we get into the miracle state of mind, that never left, that never will leave, it's always there.
mm,
But so like I said before, if we do not experience that, if we do not experience the love of God, if we do not experience the peace of God, and we're very much in pain, our task is to really see like where am I resisting that love of God, and without guilt, without shame, but to look at that resistance with a lot of love, a lot of gentleness,
mm,
that as well. I think it's so important to be very gentle with that, but also a lot of courage and a lot of realness, because it takes a lot of realness to be. It's like a whole different way of thinking to like, what? So I'm like depressed or I'm in pain because I'm resisting the love of God. Is like, no, I'm in pain because look at everything that happened to me, and look at this, and I have this, and I have that. Yes, that's the ego, way of using it to keep you stuck.
mm.
But it's really not about all of those things. But we'll still use all of those things because that's your experience,
Yeah.
So we'll give sound to that, we'll give space to that,
Yeah.
but we'll use it as a stepping stone,
Mm,
because we'll really use it to release the resistance that we have towards the love of God. I've come to find that's everything. Releasing the resistance towards the love of God. That's it. That's really it. And everything else is just like they're just stepping stones. They're really reflecting actually the resistance that we feel against love, the fear that we have against love, and how much we actually love fear. We love we love the darkness. We're all like the metal metalheads. The spiritual people might judge the rah and the, but they're actually just a reflection of our ego that loves pain and darkness and drama and guilt and that attraction towards guilt. You can feel it. Like anyone can feel it when you drive by something, an accident or
Yeah.
something big happen. It's like you feel this pull of like, ooh, what happened? You know, like what happened there? Let me let me go look it
Oh,
up, you
now,
know?
how many people
Whoa,
died?
how
Oh,
many
yeah.
people died? Whoa, you know, like let me look at it again, you
Oh,
know?
God.
Such an attraction towards
Yeah.
guilt, towards darkness, actually, you know? And to be just to be honest and gentle with that. I mean, like, okay, so there's yeah, if one of my songs, Lead the Way, I sing about that. Like it turns out I'm not afraid of fear, I'm afraid of love. You know, it
Mm,
turns out I'm not afraid of the dark, I'm afraid of the light.
mm. Oh,
Um,
I know this one, yeah.
yeah.
Lovely,
And
lovely, lovely song.
that's it. And once we can see that, you know, without harshness, without punishing,
Mm.
without blame, it's like, okay, there's actually this fear towards love
Yeah.
and see that
Give
as
it a
this,
voice and not be
yeah,
worried about giving it a voice because that brings it to the light.
exactly. Bringing it all to the light. One of my biggest, um, yeah, healing methods, along with, you know, the voice liberation that I teach as well, is doing these altar offerings. In the form of also expressing. It doesn't per se have to be with sound, but I have,
Mm.
yeah, my partner and one of my best friends that we really practice this a lot, where we record voice notes, you know, or, you know, if we're together,
Oh,
we'll just,
lovely.
you know,
Yeah,
we'll
lovely.
just do it in person. But my friend lives in Curacao, you know, so we don't see each other every day. And we'll just record voice notes. We'll say, like, I have an altar offering, um, and I do it whenever I feel even the slightest bit of discomfort. I really try to go inward and be like, okay, what is this about? And often, even last night, I felt it. I noticed there was a big shift. There's a lot of. It's also the last month of the year of the snake, you know, which for a lot of people, they can feel that. It's really a shedding, a very much a shedding of old ways, of shedding skin, of really releasing old beliefs and coming into a deeper connection with God, with ourselves, with opening up for the love of God. So a lot of people can feel that now as well in the group consciousness, that there's so many things that are shedding, relationships that are falling away, maybe jobs that are falling away, or whatever it is that is no longer serving. And I noticed it last night that there was some discomfort. And I started to express to her, okay, I have an altar offering. And I just start by just expressing, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on. And as soon as I express more, then I always get to the core of like, oh, this is what it's about, you know? And
Mm.
usually then I also have to cry, or like I really feel
Yeah.
it like, oh, this is the essence. And by it's basically actually the same as what I do in the retreats, you know?
Okay.
It's by expressing it with a person that can be really present for you. Of course, in this way it's like a voice note, so they're not there yet, but I know
Mhm.
we have the agreement um, of using our friendship for healing, you know, and so I know that even if she wouldn't listen to it, just that sort of container of where we share it to each other, it's already received in the light, you know, and
Mm.
it's not received to side with the ego or to kind of yeah look at it like, you know, the ego always wants to have allies, right? So if we share stuff with someone that you have an unholy alliance with, you know, somebody that's really going to be an ally and a side to your ego, then whenever you express like your grievances, they'll just hype you up, you know, they'll be like, yeah, what the fuck happened? I would be so angry if that happened. You know what I would do, blah, 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 you know? It's not helpful. Like, I would not be friends with anyone that would side with my ego, you know? For me, it's definitely mandatory that you side with the spirit, you know, you strengthen the spirit in my mind, so that when I share something with you, you'll reflect back the spirits, you know, it's very, very important. But like releasing those things in altar offerings, and we just listen to each other, and it's, yeah, it's again, it's just to hold space for each other. It's not to solve, to fix, to um you know, yeah, do anything to sort of, yeah, give advice or whatever. It's really to just hold space and know like, oh yeah, you're already home, you know?
Mm.
And I always see that once I place it on the altar and it comes from a sincere place, like even for instance, people that I find hard in the moment to see fully in their innocence. Like that's what I for instance also can use one of those altar offerings for, that I really share it like,
Okay.
hey, I really want to place this person on the altar. I
Right.
can still see that I have judgments, and again, that honesty, that transparency, not trying to be spiritual and this and that. I can
Hmm.
see that I'm still judging them for this or this, or I can still see that I want to hold on to what they did in the past and trying to like see them in this way, or trying to see them, you know. The other day even I placed my aunts on the altar. I asked,
Okay.
I told my partner like I really want to place her on the altar, and there were still some things that I felt from the past that I was kind of holding on to. It's like, if it hurts, you know, it hurts to, it hurts to not see somebody as totally um completely healed and whole and loving, because they're me, you know? So however I see them is how I see myself. That's why it actually hurts to see somebody not as you know, see somebody through the lens of grievances. It's because you're
Mm.
teaching yourself that you're guilty, you know? So whenever I notice that I have that, I use those altar offerings, and I have my people that keep me that can receive it, of like, you know, they will never say like, no, well, if you know, I actually would keep that grievance, you know. Like, so I really placed her on the altar, and I really told my partner like, I really want to see her innocence. I'm done with this story, you know. I want to see this differently. I really placed her on the altar. And boom, you know, the next morning I get this loving message from her, and like all like, and this is not weird. This is usually how it goes. Once I really have that willingness, um, and I place it on the altar, I really bring it to the light. How can there not be a shift? You know, because the inner is the outer is the inner. So once we are really sincere with our forgiveness work, and it's honest, same thing that when it doesn't happen, when I'm like, oh, why doesn't it work? I've already forgiven him, like, and I still think he's an asshole. I had this with my ex-partner for a long time, where it was like, why am I still, why is it not working? Why is it not working? You know, why is the forgiveness not working? And it was such a beautiful lesson for me to see so clearly it's not working because I don't want to forgive him.
Mm.
There was a part of me that was so, the ego was so it felt like such a big sacrifice for the
Yeah.
ego to fully forgive him. You know, he was
Mhm.
so attached to that story of he's the bad one, I'm the innocent one. And the ego always needs to have guilty ones to be innocent. It's like, I can only be innocent if he's guilty, because his guilt makes me innocent. You know, that's
Brilliant.
the story of the ego. And it's
Brilliant.
insane. Again, this is why it's so important to know the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles, because when you know the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles, you understand that it cannot be. It cannot be like that. You are him. There is only one of us.
Mm.
So, and plus, you know, guilt is not real, you know? So how can that work, that you can be innocent because he's guilty? You know, it doesn't work like that. So once I really saw that, oh, it feels like a sacrifice for the ego to forgive, which it is. For the ego, it is, right? Because you're sacrificing the belief in guilt, which is what the ego is built out of. It's made out of the belief in guilt, right? So when you fully see that, and it's like, oh, so I'm literally now choosing between hell and heaven, and I'm actually choosing to stay in hell. Like, that's literally my choice.
Mm.
And when I could make that decision of like, oh, shit, but I really want him to see, I really want to see him as my brother. Like, at that point, I came, this is now a few years ago, I finally came to that point where I want to see him as my brother. I really want to see his innocence. I want to see my own innocence reflected into his eyes. That's when everything shifted, you know? So even with that, it's not to be, you know, mean to yourself or to punishing to yourself, but it is just how it is. If your experience is not yet of, you know, being at peace and feeling connected to the love of God, it's because there's still a resistance towards feeling that. If you still have somebody that you're so angry with, you feel so much grievances with,
Mm.
and you're like, when is this ever gonna be healed? It's really for you to look in the mirror. When do I want this to be healed? When am I ready to let go
Mm.
of this grievance? When am I ready to see that my choice for holding grievances is hurting me way more than the fear of you know, the fear that I have of love, you know? When am I finally um ready to see that I but do this unto myself,
Mm.
you know? So then you become so honest, and then you can come to this place of like where you can see, you know, like, oh yeah, I don't want to see her as innocent yet. I can see that, and I can see that it hurts. I had it with my oldest brother like last year. I could clearly see it. I could see it of like, oh wow, I don't want to see him as innocent, and it hurts. But I could clearly see like I'm not ready. I'm not ready to fully forgive it. Like I want to see him, yeah, yeah, I can see it, you know, and to just be honest about it then. It's like, okay, do you want to be right or happy? I want to be right now. I want to be right, and it hurts, but I want to be right. And then comes the ego, like, I want to be right and happy. I want to be right and happy. No, it doesn't work like that. You know,
Brilliant.
the moment we're fully ready, no, I want to be happy. I really want to be happy. And that's sometimes the process. We cannot force that, you know, because sometimes it's just our honest experience of like, right now, I just want to be right.
Mm.
Like, even though in my spiritual ego, I say, like, oh no, of course I want to be happy, you know, or people will say, like, who doesn't want to be happy? Like, there's a who doesn't want to be happy? That's crazy. Everyone wants to be happy. Like, really? I want the peace of God, you know? Like saying those words mean nothing, but meaning those words mean everything.
Mm.
That's it. If meaning those words mean everything,
Mm.
it means that if you don't experience the peace of God, you don't actually mean that you want the peace of God.
Mm.
It's that simple, you
Mm.
know? And to be able to look at it without guilt, because the ego will come on top of that and be like, yeah, this is all your fault, and you're you know, you're just using everything to make you feel even more shitty, you know. But this is where the humor comes in, the lightness, and just the honesty of seeing like, oh yeah, yeah, there's still the fear, there's still a belief in that, you know, this grudge is keeping me, you know, that it's necessary, that it's giving me identity, that it's giving me a story that I want somewhere, even though it's a painful story, but it's part of me, and I want this story. And to just be honest about that. And at some point, you know, hopefully sooner than later, you'll come to this place where I want to see peace instead of this. I really do. Yeah. And forgiveness is not a sacrifice. It is salvation, you know, and I'm ready. I'm here. And that's where humility, you know, humility comes in and is okay, guide me, spirit.
Mm.
Um, I'm here, I'm yours. Show the way, you know, you got me. Oh.
Wow, goodness me, what an amazing, amazing conversation full of beautiful gifts and explained clearly because you understand it well enough, and your words and your energy portray that and convey that with authenticity.
Hmm.
And yeah, just loads and loads of gifts in there. And wow, enjoy. I feel like I've been in joy for the entire amount of time, and I could keep chatting to you for hours. But yeah, I mean,
then I would need a pee break. But yeah, I'm already like, I need to, the body is calling me. But yes,
Yeah.
Leon, this was so nice. I really
Mm.
enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your, yeah, for your beautiful invitation. And I feel
Mm.
your hearts and I feel your sincerity. And I'm really grateful for this moment together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Be well.